Many of you might think that math and science jobs are more a guy thing. Well, guess what? They aren't. Case in point. Katherine Johnson. Now, I know many of you have never heard of her, but Katherine Johnson was known as the human computer and was an important part of the NASA team that put a man on the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
So, let's get ready to shatter all of the stereotypes as we explore the remarkable life and career of Katherine Johnson. What were the significant events of Katherine Johnson's early years? It seems as if Katherine Johnson had a talent for math from the very beginning. She was born in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia in 1918. Her parents really believed in the value of a good education and made learning the center of their family's life. Katherine was one of 4 children and always had a love of math. As one of the younger children, she joined her older siblings around the big family table as they did their homework each day.
Everybody studied at a big table, and after I finished mine, I helped them at theirs, and I was the youngest. I wound up the head of my brother, maybe 2 grades. I don't remember how many.
Katherine and her siblings excelled at their studies. But in the 1920s, there was no high school in White Sulphur Springs. The town had mostly African American residents, and at the time, most African American students stopped going to school after the 8th grade. Katherine's parents were so determined about having their children receive a good education that they moved 120 miles from their farm in White Sulphur Springs to Institute, West Virginia each September. Institute had a respected high school and was the home of West Virginia State College. Katherine was so committed to her studies that she graduated from high school at age 14. Katherine Johnson certainly started her life with a love of learning. Let's review what we have learned so far. Question 1. In what year was Katherine Johnson born? A. 1898, B. 1918, C. 1944, D. 1972. The correct answer is B. She was born in 1918. Question 2. Which grade did Katherine enter when she started school? A. Kindergarten, B. First, C. Second, D. Third. The correct answer is C. Katherine entered 2nd grade. Here's question 3. At what age did Katherine graduate from high school? A. 14, B. 16, C. 18, D. 19. If you answered A, you know that Katherine was 14 when she graduated from high school. What were the significant events of Katherine Johnson's college, graduate school, and early work years? Katherine Johnson was born with a love for learning. She graduated high school at 14 and immediately went to West Virginia State College. Katherine loved all of the classes she was taking. She couldn't decide what to focus on. Should she major in English, French, or math? She did well in everything. Katherine's enthusiasm caught the eye of one of her math professors. The teacher had a hunch that Katherine would become a great mathematician and suggested that Katherine become a math major. He even instructed Katherine to take every math class that the college offered. Sometimes she was the only student in the class.
He said, "You'd make a good research mathematician." I said, "Oh, what do they do?" He said, "You'll find out."
Katherine's professor really believed in her. Although Katherine wasn't exactly sure what a research mathematician did, she thought that any job involving math sounded like something she might like to do. So she kept working towards her goal.
I said, "Where will I find a job?" He said, "You look till you find it." Took me 7 years, but I found it.
By the time she was only 18, Katherine had graduated with distinction from West Virginia State College. Unfortunately, in the late 1930s, there weren't many job opportunities for African American women in the United States, but Katherine was able to find work as a teacher.
I was going to be a math teacher because that was it. You could be a nurse or a teacher.
Several years later, Katherine got an offer she couldn't refuse tuition-free graduate school at West Virginia University. During the early 1940s, many colleges were allowing African American students on campus for the first time. West Virginia University wanted Katherine to be among its first African American students, so they offered her free summer classes. Katherine's mother came to stay with her that summer. Both Katherine and her mother knew that extra support might be needed because Katherine was one of only 3 African American students on campus, and she was the only woman. After taking several graduate classes, a relative mentioned that NACA, the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, which was the precursor to NASA, was looking to hire African American women to do mathematical computations. President Roosevelt had recently signed Executive Order 8802 to support the rights of African Americans. This order required government agencies to hire more African American workers. Since scientists at NACA believed that women were better at math computations because they paid more attention to small details, they began looking for African American women to fill those jobs.
He said, "You're very lucky. Langley has a post for black mathematicians. Just opened it up to women. They had a pool of women mathematicians. They just wanted somebody to do all the little stuff while they did the thinking."
Although it took more than a year for her to get hired, Katherine was thrilled to get the job working for NACA. By the time she was a young woman, Katherine Johnson had already achieved great success. Let's review what we know. Question 1. At what age did Katherine Johnson graduate from college? A, 18, B, 20, C, 22, D, 24. The correct answer is A. She graduated at age 18. Here's question 2. What job did Katherine have after college? A, waitress, B, accountant, C, teacher, D, none of the above. If you answered C, you know that Katherine became a teacher after college. Question 3. Which U.S. president issued Executive Order 8802? A, President Truman, B, President Coolidge, C, President Hoover, D, President Roosevelt. The correct answer is D. President Roosevelt signed Executive Order 8802. What did Katherine Johnson do during her first years at NACA? Katherine began her career at NACA working with about a dozen other African American women who were known as human computers. This was 1953, long before electronic computers had been invented. It was up to these women to figure out and double-check the complicated mathematics necessary to keep air travel safe. One problem that Katherine worked on was figuring out how much distance is needed between planes in the air. At first, all Katherine saw were the numbers she was to analyze. We already know that Katherine was very curious about things. After a short time at NACA, she began to ask why. She wanted to know why NACA engineers needed these calculations. What projects were they working on? Katherine noticed that the engineers would meet often to discuss projects and talk about the progress they were making. Katherine wanted in.
They'd call a group of engineers and have a briefing as to what they were going to have to do. And I asked, could I go? They said, women don't ever go to those. I said, is there a law against it? They said, no, we'll let her go ahead. I wanted to know what it was they were looking for. So I wound up doing what it was they were trying to find out.
Katherine's participation at meetings made her stand out from the other women mathematicians. Soon, engineers started requesting that Katherine work on special projects for them. In a short time, and against all odds, Katherine had made a name for herself at NACA. Katherine showed real assertiveness at NACA. Let's review what we know so far. Question 1. What nickname was given to the African American mathematicians hired by NACA? A. Math girls. B. Lady calculators. C. Human computers. D. None of the above. The correct answer is C. They were called human computers. Question 2. What kind of work did Katherine first do at NACA? A. Figured out and analyzed complicated math problems. B. Estimated the cost of the space program. C. Billing. D. Secretarial work. If you answered A, you know that she figured out complex math problems. Here's question 3. Katherine was the first woman to do what at NACA? A. Win an award. B. Get a promotion. C. Attend meetings. D. Become an astronaut. The correct answer is C. Katherine was the first woman to attend meetings at NACA. What impact did Katherine Johnson have on the U.S. space program? In 1958, NACA became the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA. Katherine had a great mathematical mind, and she wasn't afraid to show it. Katherine worked at NASA during a really interesting time in our country's history. In 1957, Russia became the first country to launch a satellite into space.
Today, a new moon is in the sky, placed in orbit by a Russian rocket.
Oh, they felt terrible that here we sat and the Russians had a vehicle riding around looking down on you. So we set out to send somebody up there and look down too.
But the United States wanted to be the country known for excellence in science and space exploration. So, in 1961, President Kennedy assigned NASA an important task: send a man to the moon.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
Katherine Johnson became an important part of the President's Space Task Force. Her job was to figure out the trajectories or paths that the Mercury 7 spacecraft would need to take in order to make astronaut Alan Shepard the first man to enter space and re-enter the Earth's atmosphere safely.
It just hit the water a moment ago. A cheer went up from the ship company watching here from all decks on the aircraft carrier.
Having Alan Shepard travel into space got the U.S. one step closer to having an astronaut land on the moon. By this time, electronic computers were just coming into existence. These first computers replaced many of the human computers that NASA had been using to figure out complicated mathematical problems. But not everyone was sure that computers could do a more accurate job than Katherine Johnson. Astronaut John Glenn was set to become the first man to orbit the Earth. He was up for the challenge, but wanted Katherine to check the accuracy of the computer's work before he blasted into space.
John Glenn said, tell her. He knew that I was the only woman that worked on it. He said, if she comes up with the same answer that they have, then the computer's right. It took me a day and a half to compute what the computer had given him. Turned out to be the exact numbers that they had.
This is Friendship 70G, and I feel fine.
During her career at NASA, Katherine also used her mathematical expertise to help astronauts land on the moon in 1969.
I computed the path that would get you there. You determined where you were on Earth when you started out and where the moon would be at a given time. We told them how fast they would be going, and the moon would be there by the time you got there.
We copy you down, Eagle. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
She was also an important part of the team that brought Apollo 13 safely back to Earth after a fuel tank exploded and caused a major computer system failure on board the spacecraft.
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here. This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
Katherine embraced the new computer technology at NASA. Her natural curiosity and love of math helped her to become an expert on the IBM computers used by NASA in the 1970s and 80s. Let's review what we have just learned about Katherine's career at NASA. Here's question 1. Which country put the first satellite into space? A, United States, B, Germany, C, England, D, Russia. The correct answer is D. Russia put the first satellite into space. Question 2. Which president established the Space Task Force? A, President Kennedy, B, President Johnson, C, President Nixon, D, President Clinton. If you answered A, you know that President Kennedy established the Space Task Force. Question 3. Katherine Johnson helped to bring which spacecraft back to Earth after it had a major problem? A, Space Shuttle Discovery, B, Sputnik, C, Apollo 13, D, Mercury 7. The correct answer is C. She helped bring Apollo 13 safely back to Earth. What is Katherine Johnson's legacy? Katherine had a long and impressive career at NASA. Many people understood the incredibly important role she played in our country's space program. She received many awards for her trailblazing work. Katherine was given honorary Doctor of Science degree by Old Dominion University and Capital College. She was also given an honorary Doctor of Law degree by SUNY Farmingdale. Katherine was also honored by NASA. In 1967, she was given the NASA Lunar Orbiter Spacecraft and Operations Team Award for her work in supporting the spacecraft that orbited and mapped the moon so that Apollo 11 could land safely. That year, she was also given the Apollo Group Achievement Award. With that award, Katherine was given one of only 300 U.S. flags that were flown to the moon aboard Apollo 11. Perhaps her most important award came in 2015. President Obama awarded Katherine the Presidential Medal of Freedom. It is the highest award a civilian can get in the United States.
Leading the world to space helped America achieve new heights of prosperity here on Earth, while demonstrating the power of a free and open society to harness the ingenuity of its people.
You will not be surprised to learn that Katherine has remained very active during her retirement years. She spends much of her time attending STEM conferences and encouraging young women to pursue careers in science, technology, engineering, and math. Katherine Johnson has been so important to the success of our nation's space program. She also broke down barriers for African Americans and women. I think what she will be best known for is her contagious curiosity and love of learning. If you enjoy math and science, get involved with your school's STEM club, and who knows, you might wind up being the next Katherine Johnson. Let's review what we have learned about Katherine Johnson's legacy. Question 1. Katherine received an honorary degree from which university? A, Old Dominion, B, Capital College, C, SUNY Farmingdale, D, all of the above. The correct answer is D. Katherine received honorary degrees from all of these universities. Question 2. What special gift did Katherine receive as a part of the Apollo Group Achievement Award? A, a U.S. flag that had been to the moon, B, a piece of the Apollo spacecraft, C, John Glenn's autograph, D, a NASA watch. The correct answer is A. She received a flag that had been to the moon. Here's question 3. Which U.S. president awarded Katherine the Presidential Medal of Honor? A, President Obama, B, President George W. Bush, C, President Clinton, D, President Kennedy. If you answered A, you know that President Obama gave her the Presidential Medal of Honor. Thinking question. Why is it important for the United States to continue to explore space?